we had gotten access to these resources that, you know, black people are never given, you know, because they're always disbarred from it, and to
Hmm.
which a certain extent Asians could gain access to. You know, it's a perfect
Yeah.
example of that. My mom understood that. My dad understood that about my mom and about that dynamic. And so these Blasian black Asian kids got all the resources that are typically cut off from them, right? And we use that system against itself as a family unit.
Her name was Alicia. I don't know. She was very insistent. Hey, welcome back to the SituAsian room for our season 2 premiere. We are back resuming our journey into Asian America to talk about the Asian American Pacific Islander, or AAPI, issues, culture, and stories. As always, we dive deep into the issues in the Asian American community, from questions like, where are you really from? And representation to sharing food and our own experiences. My name is Emilie Villaverde.
And I'm Zach. We have an incredible season 2 premiere episode for you. And this episode, we get to know Ryan Alexander Holmes and his story. Ryan is an actor and content creator. He primarily creates content for Instagram and TikTok about his experience as a Black and Asian American man. Some of the themes in this interview include systematic racism, anti-Blackness in the Asian community, identity, history, being mixed, Asian holidays, and even more. So stay tuned.
Yeah, guys, this is an incredible interview. I can't think of a better way to start off our second season. So, before we actually jump into our topic interview, as many of you guys have noticed, we went on a sort of hiatus for the past few months to not only prepare for the premiere of our second season of the SituAsian Room, but Zach and I both had some things in our own personal lives outside of the SituAsian Room that, kept us occupied. As you guys remember, Zach and I are both students. Um, and the semester has kept us busy.
So you know what I realized happened during our hiatus?
What?
You and I like saw each other again because we
Right.
haven't seen you in person before that since March, and we started the
Mhm.
podcast in May. We launched,
Yeah.
and that entire time I had not seen you in person
Yeah.
until what month? August? No, not August. January. I forgot what part of the year was. Yeah, till January, and now
Mm.
it's June again. So
Guys, we were still preparing for the SituAsian Room in the same state, on the same college campus. We were still doing it remote. We were still socially distancing ourselves. We were doing our planning meetings over Zoom, outdoors with masks on, like in gliders. And I don't think we've never recorded in the same room together,
that's true. We have not.
even when we
Maybe
were
we
both
will.
on campus. But yeah,
We'll set up a DC studio in your apartment. We'll figure it out. Anyway, let's get into the interview.
her name was Alicia. I don't know. She was very insistent.
All right, welcome back to the SituAsian Room. So Ryan, on Instagram, you shared a story that I want to ask you about. So in the Asian American community, we talk about racism and discrimination, but too often it's used to negate or equate the other struggles of other minority communities, especially the Black community. And I don't want to minimize anyone's experience at all, but I thought your story of your family moving to a conservative, homogenous neighborhood really conveyed some of the complexity of racial prejudice in America. So can you tell that story of your mother going alone to tour the house without your father?
Oh, that post.
Yeah.
I did post about that. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So back when we were moving to San Marino, I'm gonna put you on blast, San Marino. San Marino, which is in the San Gabriel Valley, in Los Angeles. My dad already had the foresight to know that this predominantly white and Asian neighborhood would not accept a black person. So instead, my dad and my mom were like, okay, what's the best way to get this house? Because we can get it. We are financially able to afford it, and they came to the agreement like, okay, I'll go. My mom was like, I'll go alone. And then I'll talk about my husband, but I'll never say that he's black, and I'll talk about my kids, but I'll never mention blackness at all, you know? So she did the tour. She met with the people. She signed the contract. And then when we moved in, it was like, wait, wait, hold up. This is, like the neighbors and the person who was selling the house to us was like, wait, hold on. What's going on here? You said not. You know what I mean? But of course they didn't confront her about it. But the look on surprise was just so sweet. It's just such a sweet experience, I think, for my dad and my mom to be like, yeah, we beat you at your own goddamn game, and also the benefit of that too is like we got gotten access to these resources that black people are never given, because they're always disbarred from it, and to which a certain extent Asians could gain access to. It's a perfect example of that. My mom understood that. My dad understood that about my mom and about that dynamic. And so these Blasian black Asian kids got all the resources that are typically cut off from them, right? And we use that system against itself as a family unit, right? There is no way that my parents are going to let me fail. I went to school before school. I went to school after school. I went to Chinese school after school. I was constantly doing parent homework. But the most important thing was the fact that like my parents instilled in me a love for learning, So it wasn't always like, hey, Ryan, do your goddamn homework.
Yeah.
Both sets of homework, do that and this. There's like, what are you interested? What do you like to do? And then giving me a bunch of encouragement and resources to go after whatever that was, For me, it was basketball. It was, a lot of sports. It was reading about those sports. It was black literature that I got into. It was, but you know what I mean. It was Harry Potter. It was stuff that I was learning outside of school too. And they would take me to camps. I was a Boy Scout. I would go to science camp. I would do summer school every summer, so my brain was always constantly wanting to learn, wanting new information, wanting to know how things worked, wanting to get better at things, and they put me in the arts too at a young age. I was doing acting, tap dancing, piano. My brother was playing saxophone and playing piano, and, so we got that well-rounded experience. But back to San Marino, we were able to use all those resources. But at the same time, it wasn't an easy road for us by any means. I remember in first grade, my brother's first grade teacher said that my brother was mentally challenged, and that he was basically calling him retarded. And my dad came to the school and he was like, we ain't playing these fucking games here. My son is smart. He's brilliant. And I don't care how much you try to persuade me or convince me that he needs to be in a special ed program. That's literally never going to happen. And he looked to the school district. He looked to the principal and he's like, you need to fire this teacher for saying this. You need to, because it's unacceptable. Because I know my son. And maybe you want him out of your classroom because you're a racist. But that's not going to happen, and you're going to have to deal with us, period. And my brother went to Yale. You know what I mean? So it's like, shut up. And they also tried to do that with me. They tried to put me in RSP classes, like the special reading class, which my naive ass at the time, I was like 10, was like, yeah. I went home, I was like, Dad, they put me in this special reading class. There's only like 2 other kids. Like, what's it called? RSP. They like take me out of regular class and like they say it's like a gifted program. And then he went to school. He's like, what the hell is this program? Why is my son in this program? And I remember going to the program and I would read things, and it was the easiest shit I've ever done. It was like, read this sentence, Ryan. The blue jay flew over the fence. I'm like, good job. And I'd be like, yeah. Yeah, I am smart, but I'm like, this is really easy. I guess I'm a genius, But they took me out of that real fast and put me back into the thing, back into the regular curriculum. Which and me and my brother both got a humble brag, or subtle brag or subtle flex. Like we got all A's all
Mhm.
the time, and it wasn't like it wasn't a pain for us. You know what I mean? We weren't killing ourselves to get all A's. We just loved learning so much because it was instilled in us. You know,
Yeah.
uh, and of course, growing up too, you had the non-acceptance of. I remember my brother, and maybe he'll hear this, maybe he won't. I don't know if I'm allowed to tell the story, but I'm just gonna go ahead and tell it. He,
Okay.
his best friends were his really, really core best friends were this group of four Asian kids, and they would do everything together. They'd be at races together, go to each other's houses, they play video games together. But then
Mhm.
one day came where, and I think for him it was fourth grade, where the N word came up, and he was like, they were joking and saying the N word, and it's like, "Ha, Ryan Reynolds is an N word, ha ha," and he's like, basically the third grade version of, "Look, guys, I'm not playing that shit. Don't say that because it makes me uncomfortable, and don't say that." And they doubled down on it, and he got in a huge fight, and then after that day, he just didn't hang out with them anymore. He cut ties with them, and
Mhm.
he started hanging out with the white kids and skateboarding and stuff like that. And I think that was a pivotal moment that sort of made him understand that these Asian kids, or this Asian community, that there was this divide that he didn't know was there, right? That was very strong and ever prevalent, and no one ever talked about it. But he saw the monster face to face in that interaction. And I think for a while he was just like, I'm not dealing with that. I don't want to hang out with you guys. I'm gonna go over here and do this. Meanwhile, I'm like, I'm like, some dude just called me the N word, and I'm like, look, I just realized I'm black. So I'm gonna be the blackest black person ever in the world. I'm gonna wear baggy jeans to school. I'm gonna wear a Snoop Dogg chain, and try to talk differently because, like, I don't know if you knew this, bro, but we're black. And I'm looking at him, like, judging him because he's in skateboard clothes that are tight jeans and ripped, ripped
Mm.
pants and stuff, and he's hanging out with the white kids, and I'm over here hanging by myself and this other Asian kid who's like, who like really loves black culture, and it's just us two, you know. So me and my brother just constantly would go through waves of feeling like we're not black enough, not Asian enough, or thinking that we're too white or whatever, all throughout our time in elementary school. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, and
in middle school and high school.
I think that with the dynamic of just where you are in life, who's surrounding you, who you choose to surround yourself with, it really goes with, that theme. And you mentioned this earlier in one of your answers. That the proximity to quote unquote whiteness,
Yeah.
that's, prevalent in, like you said, it comes in waves throughout our life. It can be,
Yeah.
sometimes it can be like where I was growing up, where I'm trying to Americanize myself as much as possible, and I'm trying to achieve that, closer proximity to whiteness in the things that I do, the people that I hang out with. But then there are ways where I'm like, hey, I'm Asian, yo, I'm Filipino, like,
Mm-hmm.
look at, this is the food I eat, this is
Yeah.
this is what I wear, like, this is
Yeah.
it.
To feel proud. I think we're also
Mhm.
shifting. Minorities are shifting their idea of what success is, and it doesn't have anything to do with being white or being around white people, because for the
Mhm.
longest that's all it was. That's all it was
Yeah.
like, I don't think we understood how much power we really did have, economically, socially, politically.
Mhm.
I mean, we're still working on the political part, uh,
Yeah.
because that translates into more economic power as well. But I look at the Asian community and I'm like, y'all just, not y'all, we we did so well. We came here, some of us as
Mhm.
refugees, but then, a lot of us after the Immigration Act of 1965, who
Mm-hmm.
were highly qualified and basically recruited to come here. We did really well. We put our heads down and we worked super hard, and we formed insular communities that the dollar stays in for longer than any other community in America. We did that, you know?
We did.
So what do we need y'all for? Do you know what I mean? But I don't want to go
Mm-hmm.
too far in that realm because, Asians are a minority, and just because we established ourselves successfully in this insular bubble that we do have, we can't allow that to make us feel like we're better than any other minority, or that
Mm-hmm.
because we've achieved that, we can look at Black people and we can look at brown people and Latinos and Latinas and be like, look, we did this shit. Why can't you? Because the circumstances are not the same. They're
Yeah.
not the same. And we need
Definitely.
to dive into the understanding of why Asians were able to do that. Yes, it was their hard work and their tenacity, but they were under a different set of circumstances than Black and brown people. Period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Period. And it doesn't take away from anything they've achieved or
Mhm.
we've achieved. And I think that's something that needs to be clarified and understood even more as we continue on into the future, because that is something that's going to unite minorities together, you know?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Because Chinese people worked on the goddamn railroad and were treated like fucking dogs, highly
Mm-hmm.
expendable. They didn't even treat them like human beings, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a part of history that we don't learn in school. We don't learn
Yeah.
that shit in school.
No.
We learn that we were building the transatlantic railroad for America, and we could go from the East Coast to the West Coast and increase trade, and the Chinese people kind of helped too. But it did so much for America. It's like,
Yeah.
no, I remember hearing stories or reading stories about, the dynamiters, the Asian immigrants who came here and had to dynamite sides of cliffs. And the best strategy that these barons that were in charge of the construction came up with was like, we're going to lower this Asian man in a basket, and he's going to have a stick of dynamite. He's going to light it, wedge it in a crack, and then time it just right so when he pushes off the side of the cliff, it'll explode, and the explosion will be done by the time he comes back and hits the cliff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's
You know how many,
crazy.
you know how many
That's crazy.
Asian men died under those
Yeah.
circumstances? Not just one circumstance. That makes no sense at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could only think that was okay if you didn't see these people as human beings. And that's a part of our history. It's a huge part of our history. Because Asian American history is American history. Just like African American history is American history. And we don't see that. We still don't. And something needs
No.
to be done about that.
And I think, in recent years, we've been doing a really good job with getting that part of history out into the open, because the college setting, this is the only way I can relate to it, because, Zach and I were college students. But in the fall for my Filipino Student Association, we have Filipino American History Month in October, where we celebrate all of the history that's happened for Filipino Americans since we came to the United States. And we celebrate that, and we try and spread awareness of Filipino culture all throughout October. But then you also go to the spring semester, where I think it's in May, Zach, I might be
Yeah.
wrong. Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month, Asian Pacific Islander American Heritage Month, where we just, our American Students Association takes, well, not really in May, we do it in like March or April, but we take every week that week and we look into a different Asian culture, and we try and showcase that part of Asian American history, or that we try and showcase that culture, so that it's not that we're forgetting that part of history that happened, where it does include Asian Americans.
Mhm.
We're celebrating it more. So
Exactly. That's another thing, right? We need to know the deep, dark history that they've hid from us, but also we need to celebrate the history that they also didn't show from us. Show
Yeah.
us.
because there's so many
The
parts of history that
heroes.
yeah
Yeah.
yeah there's so many parts of history that I didn't know about
Yeah.
until
Yeah. Have you watched the PBS documentary Asian Americans?
Me? No.
I have
No?
not.
Oh,
No.
highly recommend. I'm gonna link that in the show
No.
notes
Yeah, link
actually.
that.
It's like
Perfect.
5 hours. It's like 5 1 hour part, but it's so worth it. It actually came out this May.
Oh
It's
wow.
really good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, incredible. But yeah, it dives really deep into like Asian American history and how it becomes a part of like American history. And like shapes a lot of like the modern debates we have about things like whether it was
Yeah.
like the family separation at the border or
Yeah.
like the idea of like birthright citizenship and stuff like that and how it ties to
Yeah.
like historical stuff. It's really good.
See, that's exactly what I've come to understand by embracing who I am and being very out loud about it is that just like Emily, you were talking about celebrating it, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you start to celebrate it, who you are, and all the joys of it, you start to understand that there's a huge community out there that actually supports you. I
Yeah.
think
Mhm.
for me in my mind, I was just like, well, I'm not gonna embrace that because no one's gonna care. Why would they care? I'm not gonna be out loud about it because why would they care? But in my mind, I'm still conditioned to believe that I don't. My story doesn't matter because it's because of this predominant being conditioned by this predominantly white culture that we're subject to in America. You know,
Mhm.
to
Mm-hmm.
that uplifts itself. And I'm not talking about white people. I'm talking about the predominant white culture that uplifts itself at the detriment of all others, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's apparent in our educational system how we learn from white history or history from a white perspective, or call it white history, uh,
Mm-hmm.
to not understand how beautiful we are. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Mhm.
It's
And that's the
such a
beauty
subtle
of
shift.
yeah, that's the beauty of podcasts like, what Zach and I are trying to do here in the Situation Room. Other podcasts that I've tuned into, like Dear Asian Americans with Jerry Wan.
Shout out Jerry
Um,
Wan.
Shout
Oh,
out to
Jerry
Jerry Wan,
Wan, we love you.
who,
We love you, buddy.
yes. But yeah, like these, so for at least for the Situation Room, our
Great
um
name, by the way.
thank
Thank you.
you. That's all Zach. But our mission statement is, we're a journey into Asian America, and we dive deep into the issues in the Asian American community, and we ask the questions like, where are you really from? And we talk about representation and food and our own experiences. We tell our stories, not just to raise awareness, but we're trying to provide a platform where we are celebrating our our culture. We're
Yeah,
celebrating our background, and we're
yeah,
providing a space, a medium for anyone that happens to tune in to share their experiences with us, to celebrate the diversity that exists in our country and in our community.
yeah, yeah. And I'm here. I'm here to support and be behind that message wholeheartedly. I endorse this campaign. No, I'm so yeah. No, it because I think Asians are embracing themselves, and we're embracing ourselves in a way that we haven't before.
Hmm.
We haven't before. I don't think in this fashion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is like the democratization of like content creating, because
Yeah, that's
there's no
true.
like executives that can stop us, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
and like gatekeep us away from being on TV or not being on TV, but getting our platform and our ideas and our messages out there.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I know we are called the SituAsian Room, and we are talking about Asian American topics. And in this episode specifically, we're talking about your experiences as being, Black and Asian American. But for our listeners at home that are not Black or not Asian, what would you like for them to take away from everything that we talked about on this episode?
I mean, it all applies. It all applies because we're talking about embracing who you are. We're
Mhm.
talking about we're talking about knowing who you are and discovering that and celebrating that, whoever you are. And when we say it in terms of this American system that has a predominant culture that doesn't necessarily include minorities most of the time, that's necessary for all of us. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? And if you are a white person listening to it, it applies to you. Maybe not in a racial way, but in many other ways that you live your life. Do you know what I mean? I don't
Yeah.
think this message is only for Asians or only for Blasians like me, because my message is definitely not. You know, my message is love yourself and love other people and understand where they're coming from and have those conversations and understand that when someone is speaking from anger and hate, that wasn't, they weren't born out of the womb like I hate black people, I hate, you know what I mean, that was taught to them. And it's become a cliche to hear like it's taught, but it really is taught. And you need to understand that, like, if when people spout these things out of their mouth, that they are victims, you know. And we can
Hmm.
feel compassion for those people. I mean, but if it comes to a physical place, then you deal with that. But most of the time, it's just people shouting at each other on the internet, you know.
Hmm.
And once you stop shouting, what's left? Once you stop like hating each other and you're face to face, what are you gonna do? Are you really gonna fight about these ideals that you have when there's a human being right in front of you that you can like have a coffee or a beer with and just like talk about life with? You're gonna fight him about this thing over here that doesn't really affect the situation right in front of you? That doesn't make sense to me. You know, what can you learn from another human being that's in front of you? You
Yeah.
know, I feel like people should it's so easy to get on a computer and be anonymous, or not even anonymous, just be on a computer and type some shit and not see somebody. You know what I mean? But if
Hmm.
you're, would you say that to their face? Would you say it to their face? No. Would you say it to their face? You wouldn't, because you would treat them with more of a human decency because they're right in front of you. And also, there's a danger that they might kick your ass if you say something that's like just blatantly disrespectful,
Yeah.
because you wouldn't do that. That's not who you are. But this facade and the safety that you think that you have to completely eviscerate somebody with with verbal vitriol that you wouldn't say face to face is like, that's something that we need to work on as human beings, on honestly on both sides, if we're being honest, if we're
Yeah.
really being honest, because it's not bringing us any, it's not bringing the country forward, not bringing humanity forward in general. It's just creating a bigger and bigger divide because no one's listening. No one's acting from their heart. Everyone's acting from hate and anger, you know,
Hmm.
even the
Yeah.
liberals.
I would
Yeah.
agree. Yeah.
All right. Before we let you go, Ryan, here in the SituAsian room, every time we bring a guest, so every week, we ask a series of different questions, and I'm just gonna jump right into it. What does quote unquote being AAPI or being Asian American Pacific Islander mean to you?
Man, I mean, obviously there's so many of us and we come from all different places and we're all different shapes and sizes. Uh, to me specifically, I mean, I'm a mixture of black and Asian, and I think that if you're mixed with something, I'm speaking to mixed people here that are mixed Asian, don't think that you're ever not enough. You're not Asian enough to be Asian or to act Asian or to hang out with Asians. You are always enough. Um, and to really appreciate yourself by appreciating your culture.
Yeah. I like that. So our next question is, what is your favorite Asian dish?
Easy. So it's such an easy question. My
Really?
grandma throws down in the kitchen, y'all, and she makes this ginger crab that is like the best.
Ooh.
It's the best food I think I'll ever ingest in my body in my entire life.
I think that's the quickest anyone's ever answered.
That's the
Everyone's
Yeah,
quickest
like,
answer. I think
because
maybe,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's just the greatest dish, and my family like it, but they don't like it as much as I do, and as much as I think they should. So I like eat most of it by myself. And if there's anything else on the table, like I'm just like, I don't need any of that rice. No, 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 no. Noodles. No, no, no. Just give me the crab. Matter of fact, just give me all of it. And if you want some, I'll hand you some because, I'm going to eat most of it anyway. But yeah.
I
That's
love that.
awesome. Wow, that's the fastest the fastest
What do
response
people
to the food
like have
question.
to really think about it?
Yeah,
Because
I don't
everyone's
know.
like,
I don't know my favorite, honestly. I
It's
there's too
hard. It's
much.
hard to choose. I mean, it's easy for me because it's my grandma and there's nostalgia there and there's,
hmm
the familiar aspect to it. Like, it's easy for me to pick that.
yeah. All right, next question. Who would you consider to be your AAPI role model?
My mom,
Nice.
period.
That's it.
I mean, there's others, obviously, but look, I don't need to name them because my mom, she's top notch. She's at the
Oh,
highest peak.
love it. I love it. Our last question: how can people connect with you and watch your content?
Go to my Instagram, Ryan Alex H. Go to my TikTok, also Ryan Alex H. Go to my Twitter. Well, don't go to my Twitter. I don't have anything on there. I don't really use Twitter. But TikTok and Instagram. I do make a lot of posts on Facebook as well, Ryan Alexander Holmes. But I don't really want you to follow me on there because it's more personal.
All right. Yeah.
But now you are because I told you.
All right. Well, thank you again to the incredible Ryan Alexander Holmes for joining us here in the SituAsian room for this week's interview. Guys, if you are interested in anything that was mentioned during this interview, check out the show notes for this episode on our website, www.situasianroom.com. But yeah, thanks, Ryan, for coming onto the
Thank
show. It's
you.
been a blast.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Love this. Thank you.
Her name was Alicia. I don't know. Very interesting.
All right, guys, welcome to season 2 of Dish It Out. This is our segment where we sit down and dish out some of our foodie favorites from our own cultures and introduce cuisines from around the Asian American Pacific Islander community. So to start off season 2, Zach and I are going to give you guys dishes from our own cultures. So I'm going to kick it off by bringing some Filipino food to the Dish It Out table. I'm going to be talking about kare-kare. So a lot of my Filipino homies know about this dish. Some people love it, some people don't. This is a Filipino stew, or it's kind of like our version of what curry would be like. But this is a very popular dish in the Philippines. Traditionally, this is made with oxtail and tripe, which is cow intestines, different vegetables like eggplant and bok choy, and a thick, savory peanut sauce. And honestly, I didn't like this dish growing up. I didn't like the peanut sauce and the vegetables. Like I personally just didn't like eggplant growing up. So whenever my grandmother would make this dish, it wasn't one of the foods that you would find on my plate. I stuck with a lot of the safer Filipino foods growing up, but as I got older and I branched out, I grew to love kare kare so much, and nobody makes this dish better than my grandmother. Unfortunately for Zach, because it does have a peanut sauce, you are unable to try it.
Sure, that's good.
But I think that this is such a great dish. I have it with a bowl of white rice, and you'll find this, or at least from my family and a lot of other Filipino families, you will find this at big parties. It's such a hearty meal. And, just because is that curry, like almost stew consistency, because depending on where you have it, some families will make it more of like a sauce, but where it's like super thick. But other recipes, it might not be as thick. It might be a little runnier of a peanut sauce. But regardless, the combination of oxtails and mixed vegetables, which a lot of people will, you know, throw in their own vegetables and make it their own personalized dish, is what makes it so incredible. And I recently just had this at a family gathering, and it's that comfort food. Like it makes you feel all warm inside, and oh my goodness, I love it so much. But yes, that is my dish that I'm bringing to the Dish It Out table.
That's awesome. So I'm curious, when you like eat it with white rice, do you pour it over the white rice or you do?
Yes. So personally, I like having the rice plated um in one corner, and then I pour the kare kare, I pour like the vegetables and the meat over the rice, and I take a little bit of the sauce and like pour the sauce over the rice so that it mixes, and it's just every bite is bursting with flavor. I personally, that's the only way I know how to do it.
Oh, interesting. I know that's like that reminds me of like how Koreans eat stew, or they like mix over rice and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, my family makes fun of me. I personally, this is a weird thing about me. I don't like things on my rice. I just kind of like it plain, or like some sauces are fine, but it has to be like super light. Like fish sauce is
Oh,
fine over my
okay.
rice, but like that's about it. And I'm just like, I don't know. I'm really weird. Like I'll eat things together, but they just can't be sitting on top of it. I don't know. There's a weird thing. I don't know. So wait, is the peanut sauce like mixed into the stew?
Yeah, so it's like in the sauce, it's like peanut butter. So like you mix it,
Ah,
yeah, it's like a peanut sauce. It's like a
gotcha.
thick peanut, like peanut buttery sauce.
Everything about the peanut sauce sounds good to me, but it's just 'cause I'm allergic.
Yeah, sorry, dude.
That's funny. Is eggplant like a big part of it?
A lot of like traditional dishes will include um eggplant. A lot of people like it'll have bok choy. I have had kare kare in the past with like string beans in it. Sometimes there's honestly like it's whatever you make of it. Like whatever vegetables you like that you want to include, you totally can.
Okay.
It's more of like the hearty like stew veggies that will like last in a stew, you know?
Yeah. No, when I feel like eggplant is a very like mature vegetable, like for people to
Mhm.
buy. I don't
Yeah.
know. I at school I bought an eggplant at the grocery store and I was like, this is an adult purchase.
Oh my god. Zach,
It is. What?
honestly, eggplant is so in my opinion, it's so slept on. Like you can do so much with eggplant. It's a really great vegetable.
It's kind of a pain in the ass to soften though, because you have to like soak it in salt water or like cook it for a while. But I mean, it's good. I mean, like,
That's how you know you're adulting. If
yeah, I feel
you
like
have
eating
to,
vegetables is adulting, you
yeah,
know? Is
I
yeah.
guess.
I guess too many of my friends just like make frozen chicken nuggets and stuff like that and like frozen pizzas. But anyway, my dish for dish it out is a dim sum favorite, sumai or shumai, depending on how you pronounce it. My Cantonese isn't great, but it is a pork and shrimp dumpling with a wonton wrapper that's like wrapped around the side, but the top is open. So think of it like you have like a little meatball of like shrimp and pork, and then it's wrapped around the sides with a steamed wonton wrapper. And so yeah, it comes in a little like those metal or bamboo steamed uh, holders. I don't know what to call them. Units.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're called. I just know that I just know how to use them. And sometimes they have a little like row on top, like for like that little pop of orange colored. But yeah, it's delicious. It's great with like different sauces. And yeah, I love them. They're dim sum favorite.
Have you ever tried making them?
I have not. Okay, I actually recently went to Chinatown, Philly, one of my favorite places, and at this restaurant called Dim Sum Garden, which is like big in Chinatown, Philly. I went to the bathroom, and in the back, I walked past and I saw like one of the cooks making it, and she had this
Oh wow.
massive pile um, of like the inside mixture, right, like the meat and the shumai and all that. And
Mhm.
she like had her wonton wrappers, and she was like quickly like going through and just packing them in and just like forming them really quickly. I was impressed. But I don't know.
This
They seem like
sounds so
I can
good.
make them. Maybe I'll try to make them. Maybe that'll be food for this weekend. We'll see. Yeah, actually, I will. I'm kind of craving them. There's a place in Miami though. I forget what it's called, but they do vegan shumai.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I mean, it looks good.
Honestly, I grew up with shumai. There was always like a staple in my family was going to um Chinese restaurants for dim sum and getting shumai and just dipping it in the just like a mix of soy sauce and hot
Like
chili
vinegar.
oil.
Ooh, That's good.
Mhm. It's like one of the things that I can remember eating, like even as a little kid, with my cousins at the table with the lazy Susan, just like passing it
Yeah.
around, different like of those little like metal like tins of different dim sum dishes, and just having like like just like those little round tins, like tins and tins of shumai, because I was just a favorite for everyone at the table.
They're good. I know. I think we had them for Lunar New Year this year. Then when we had our little picnic, I
Oh
think
yeah,
I
we
definitely
did.
ordered them. Yeah.
Mhm.
Now they're like $3 for like a few of them, right? Like for like a steamed order. But at the vegan place, they're like 12 like dollars. And I was like, I'm not going. I don't have anybody. I'm a college kid. I'm not doing that. But it's interesting. Anyway, that wraps it up for this episode's Dish It Out segment. And if you guys have any dishes you want us to bring to the Dish It Out table, make sure to send it to us. That's recipes or on our website or through social media. Just let us know. Thank you again to Ryan Alexander Holmes for coming into the Situation Room. And thank you all for tuning into this episode.
That was an awesome interview. I personally, just looking back, it was really interesting to see how people from our community, people from the AAPI community, are really pushing to not only raise awareness of, you know, cultural diversity, but they're using social media to celebrate the diversity and celebrate showcasing awareness of different cultures, not just and it's not just the Asian American community. But it's really cool to see that people are taking to social media, using platforms like Instagram and TikTok, even YouTube, like us, or podcasts to really push for, I guess, cultural celebration and cultural diversity. Because 10 years ago, when Instagram was still new, and we didn't have TikTok, it was Vine or just watching short clips on YouTube. We didn't have, you know, a whole lot, and it's hard to like I never would have been able to imagine how powerful social media could be, um, for things like, using your voice to share whatever messages you find important.
Yeah, and I think Ryan's message is really interesting. His perspective is fascinating as someone who's both Asian and Black, especially in a time right now.
Yeah.
He's bringing a lot of different people together because he has this shared experience that, like, maybe you and I hold too, but also people from the Black community as well. And I think it's highlighting a common humanity, which is awesome. But that's all for this episode. And as always, the Situation Room is produced by Crimson Planet Media. Make sure to check us out at our website, situationroom.com, and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at the Situation Room for more content.
Guys, new season, same deal. We always want to hear from you. So send us messages and dish it out recipes through our website, slide into our DMs on Instagram, message us on Facebook, and let us know what you guys want us to talk about next in the Situation Room. But for now, thank you again for joining us on this step of our journey through Asian America. My name is Emilie Villaverde.
And I'm Zach King. So, same place, same time next week.
We have a whole second season to promote.
Oh, we do. All right, sounds good. All right, we'll see y'all next time.
Bye, guys.
Her name was Alicia. I don't know. She was very insistent.
This has been awesome. All right, just like that, we're done.